And Mark gives us this encounter then. And Jesus is speaking and is recognized. And the evil spirits say, "We know who you are. You are the Holy One. What are you doing here? What have you to do with us?" They recognize Jesus speaking, and then Jesus recognizes them and says, "I know who you are too. You are evil, and you will lead him down." And the evil obeys the voice of Jesus. This is amazing. Here we actually see that not only do some of the folks recognize the voice of Jesus and obey, but evil even recognizes the voice of Jesus and obeys. That's one of the first clues for us in our learning more about Christian discipleship. If evil can recognize the power and authority of Jesus, Christians, disciples, surely we ought to be able to recognize the power and authority of Jesus. And so in this encounter then, the evil one leaves based on the voice of Jesus. And those who are around are amazed, again, except for the scribes, who are upset. And so as we spend this year learning more about the characteristics of Christian disciples, we're learning about this so that we can respond. As disciples respond and learn and grow and are shaped and formed. We've already covered some of it, but we cover it again, and each week you're going to see an addition. So if you're looking at your bulletin, and on the inside page, we're going to just track for us each week. What are we learning about the characteristics of discipleship? Because on the 11th, what we learned is disciples listen for God's voice. That's what Christian disciples do. We listen for God's voice so that we can respond. On the 18th, we learned that disciples are called by name. It's not just a random announcement. Yes, sometimes there are random announcements. Sometimes there's an announcement. Well, there's going to be a church cleanup on the 18th, and if somebody will come out for the church cleanup, there's less work to do. Or there's going to be a door hanger, and the door hanger is going to be for Easter. So if someone will, well, that's not the way that disciples are called when Jesus makes the call. Jesus knows our name and calls us by name. Last week we had Pastor Ralph Rowley here with us and gave us a great word, and he gave us a number of nuggets about discipleship. But one that I pulled out from what he said, disciples are passionate for ministries that only God can accomplish. We're not relying on ourselves. We're not thinking it's only about what we can do. The ministries we're passionate about are ministries that we know can be accomplished, but accomplished through God. And this week, Mark helps us to understand another characteristic of discipleship, Christian discipleship. Disciples recognize Jesus by his mighty deeds. You see, the mighty deeds that Christ did back in Mark that are recorded, mighty deeds of Christ continue. The reason we do prayer requests and hear updates is because we know Christ is still doing mighty deeds today. God is still responding to our prayer requests. God is still hearing the needs of God's people, and God is responding. And disciples recognize that. We recognize it and we celebrate it. We do it because we hear the voice of Jesus. You remember how John 10 talks about that? Jesus is talking about the shepherd and the sheep. And the sheep who aren't following along and some who are following. And what John 10 says to us is they followed because they know the shepherd's voice. Christian disciples don't just listen for the voice of Christ. Don't just listen for the voice of God. But Christian disciples recognize that power. It speaks as one with authority. And so, folks, it might seem like it's going to take a long time between now and September, but we're going to stay focused on this, learning about discipleship, and we're going to do it for one reason and one reason only. We're going to stay focused on learning about the characteristics of Christian disciples So that here at Registered Chapel, our ministries and our behavior and our decisions will be a reflection more and more of the character of disciples. That's why we're doing this. That's why we would spend so much time. And so every Sunday, you just look in your bulletin and you'll be able to track what we've learned from these Bible stories about discipleship. So that Registered Chapel can be a place where it's obvious that our decisions and ministry and actions are a reflection of Christian discipleship. In Jesus' name, amen.